Welcome, welcome, everyone. Welcome to our first episode for 2024 for DPRC. My name is Anitra Henry. I'm the Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives at the Institute for Public Relations, and I welcome you to this episode of Diversity in the PR Classroom. IPR and PRSA Educators Academy have been partnering on diversity in the PR classroom since June of 2020. Today, we will have a discussion of women's journeys into leadership in PR and beyond. Today's session will be moderated by my colleague and Diversity Chair of PRSA Educators Academy, Nandini Bahala. Our panelists are powerhouses in the field and in life, and it is my pleasure to introduce them to you. First, we welcome Alexis Davis-Smith, CEO and President of Precise Communications. With more than 30 years of experience, Alexis is a national voice for multicultural and inclusive marketing and has a reputation as a trusted communication strategist. She is an award-winning communications and PR professional responsible for creating breakthrough and strategic communications programs for major consumer brands. Since launching Precise Communications in 2000, Alexis has provided public relations counsel for leading global companies such as Coca-Cola, Toyota, and Pfizer. She is a proud graduate of Florida A&M University of Rattler and has a passion for women and giving back to the next generation of public relations professionals and entrepreneurs. Next, please welcome Dr. Marlene Neal, who is a full professor, congratulations, and graduate program director in the College of Arts and Sciences at Baylor University. She also serves as the faculty advisor for the Baylor PRSSA chapter. Her research interests include public relations management and ethics. She has published more than 30 journal articles and published 3 books on public relations, ethics, and leadership, including Leadership Development and Public Relations, Exploring Crucibles of Experience Among Industry Veterans. Dr. Neal has a Bachelor of Science in Journalism, Broadcast News from the University of Kansas, Master of Arts in Journalism, Strategic Communication from the University of Missouri, and PhD in Advertising from the University of Texas at Austin. Last but not least, welcome Rochelle Payne, who is the Vice President for Strategic Communications and Marketing at Hampton University. She is an award-winning communicator and an industry leader with more than 30 years of experience in public relations, change management, brand and reputation management, and crisis preparedness. She is President Emeritus of the National Black Public Relations Society, a member of the National Board of Directors for the Diversity Action Alliance, strategic advisor to Public Relations Society of America, and member of the National Association of Black Journalists. A former journalist, college English instructor, and serial entrepreneur, Rochelle provides counsel and coaching on the behavior changes that help senior business leaders grow their reputation and revenue. Rochelle has worked across a variety of industries for such clients as the Obama Foundation and Delaware River Port Authority, among many others. She earned a bachelor's degree in English from Hampton University, or shall I say the Hampton University, a master's degree in corporate communication from Duquesne University, and the Certified Communications Professional, or CCP designation from the AWC Matrix Foundation. Thank you all so much for being here and sharing your personal experiences with us. Lastly, before we begin, I'd like to share a few housekeeping rules. This is a Q&A type forum. To ask a question, feel free to drop it in the chat or raise your virtual hand. Once you're called on, please remember to state your name and your organization if you feel comfortable. If you would like to ask a question anonymously, please type the message to the host in the chat and we will read your question aloud. Only the moderators can see your question, so you will remain anonymous. Today's session will be recorded and will be available for playback on Monday. Also note, some of what may be shared here today is sensitive, so names and dates may be changed to protect the innocent or the not so innocent. Lastly, please remain respectful to our host and others on the call by keeping yourself muted at all times. unless you intend to speak or ask a question. With that, Nandini, I will turn it over to you and our esteemed guests.
Thank you, Anitra. So I welcome panelists and participants alike. Thank you so much for joining the session. So I would like to ask a question to our panelists. Just wanted to remind also that you can ask question anytime in the chat. All right. So I would like to start with panelists, starting from Dr. Marlene. Please share your journey. How did you reach to this leadership position?
So my career began in broadcast news, and then after 3.5 years working in the television industry, I went into public relations, initially working for YMCA and nonprofit PR, and then 10 years in city government. As I pursued additional training and education, my master's degree and eventually PhD, I started getting some experience in leadership through PRSA. In different committees, starting at the chapter level and then the district and national level, and then also through AJMC and some of their various divisions like the PR division and media ethics division. So I really started to get a lot of my leadership experience through volunteer service through professional associations.
Thank you for sharing your journey, Dr. Malini. I would like to ask Alexis if you would like to share your journey with us.
Happy to do so. I actually think my career started unknowingly when I was about 12 years old. My mother was the public relations director for a very large church in Southern California. And I actually used to proof her newsletters and news releases and go to media conferences and watch her, coordinate media interviews. So it really started then. But after going to college to Florida A&M University, I graduated 30 years ago, and my first job was in Ketchum Public Relations, which we all know is one of the top 10 PR firms. And I was with that agency nearly 7 years, doing a lot of work in the consumer brand space, traveling the world, working on the Olympics and the IOC Olympic Prize, and working with cool celebrities like LL Cool J and Shakira, and meeting Prince Albert of Monaco. But there was a certain point where I really started to get burned out. And I said, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to start my own consultancy. And so I started Precise 24 years ago with a focus on multicultural communications, specializing in outreach to African Americans and Hispanics. And my first client out the gate was the Coca-Cola Company asking me to work on Super Bowl 34 here in Atlanta. And I have not looked back since. So that's a snapshot.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey, Alexis. I appreciate that. Rachel, would you like to share your journey, please?
Absolutely. First, let me say thank you, Anitra, for the invitation to join this panel and talk about things that women don't typically talk about. So buckle up, buttercups. This is going to be a great conversation. Alexis, you triggered some thoughts, and I'm going to go back to when I really realized what my gift and calling were. And I was the best spelling bee champion in elementary school. And I always enjoyed besting the guys. And then you would be able to sit in the little corner in the reading nook and all by yourself and read books and nobody could bother you. So I remember doing that, which led into a love for words. I wanted to be like Connie Chung. If you're old enough to remember who she is, she's Maury Povage's wife, if that helps. But a career in front of the camera just didn't turn out. I had a love for writing the story. So I started out as a journalist. When I graduated from Hampton, it was either a teacher or a lawyer. And I do believe that I have some debate and fight in me all the time. But I knew that I couldn't sit in front of a classroom and teach. So I started as a journalist in Pittsburgh for a weekly Black newspaper. And once that coverage of the house fire and the robbery began to wear on me, I really began to understand what public relations for an organization looked like. And I was invited to come back to my alma mater, and I cut my teeth in public relations about 30 years ago, right where I am today. In between, I was working in agency. I was an entrepreneur for many years, and then I worked in corporate. But I was invited last two Novembers ago by the new president of Hampton University to come back and serve. He reorganized the function to vice president roles. I sit right next to him and listen to the vision and learn his style and am able to replicate strategies that reflect that. And I've not looked back ever since. It's been a wonderful coming home, full circle moment with a lot of bumps and bruises along the way.
Thank you, Rochelle. Talking about the bumps and bruises for sure in the long journey, I would really like to ask the second question is, how did you manage your personal and professional barriers in your journey?
Would you like for me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, honestly, I'm still fighting them. It never ends. It looks different in each decade of your life. And so in your 20s, the mental and the perceived and the real barriers are, you want to make a name for yourself. You want to get out there and you want to, grab the bull by the horns. And then in your 30s, you're trying to differentiate yourself. So you actually have this existential crisis, if you will, that you're looking at what you're doing and where you want to go and how to get there. And you have to make some very serious choices. So in my 30s, I made some very serious choices about how I was going to play the game. That left me going to lunch by myself sometimes. I've lost out on opportunities sometimes, but I knew that my constitution meant that I wasn't going to throw someone under the bus, that I wasn't going to, and you can mute me if you want to, Anitra, but I'm getting ready to go there. I decided not to fraternize with the boss so that I can get some cool points and move forward. So it had consequences, but it reaped tremendous rewards now that I look back. In my 40s, I was looking for industry opportunities to contribute to the industry. And so having jumped those hurdles, I was looking for ways to contribute and give back now that I knew just a little something. And now in my 50s, we were talking before the session started, we were talking about the freedom that comes in your 50s to call it like you see it. You're using your wisdom and you're using your bumps and bruises as lessons learned so that somebody else behind you doesn't experience what you experience. So you can actually go in a room and call the shots. You can tell the guy that's calling the woman honey, stop it. You can do those things. And so mental barriers have looked different. But what was consistent is the courage to do what it is necessary that speaks to your inner constitution. So the barriers in mental and perceived and real, they don't stop. They just look different.
You said it so nicely. They look different for everyone. Yeah, they're different for each of us. Yes. Dr. Malin, you want to add? You want to share your personal journey, personal barriers?
So some barriers that I had initially was just a lack of opportunity to advance within the city organization that I was working at, city government. And so what happened is I decided then to pursue some additional education through my master's degree, an online master's program through the University of Missouri. And that opened up some doors for me along the way, as well as achieving my accreditation in public relations. So additional training is what really opened doors for me. And I did have one particular moment that was quite a setback for me. It was a case where I pursued an opportunity that I wasn't quite ready for yet. And I was very disheartened in that time. And one of my mentors actually took me to lunch for a pep talk. But even more importantly, after that discussion, he opened some doors by recommending me for some opportunities. And that's when I had an opportunity to serve as the secretary for the Southwest District of PRSA, as well as being appointed to the Universal Accreditation Board for PRSA. And so he helped open some doors for me to do some national service. And I want to say I love having a chance to give back to causes that I care a lot about. And so I've really enjoyed the opportunity to gain leadership experience and work along colleagues that are also passionate for those same causes.
Thank you for sharing opportunities and the challenges in academia. Thank you for sharing your barriers. Alexis, I would like to ask your personal barrier that you have faced in your journey till here.
Yes. So I'm going really want to talk a little bit more about being my professional challenges. Being a minority entrepreneur in the United States, first and foremost, comes with its own challenges. Of course, minority entrepreneurs often don't succeed because they have lack of resources, financial resources to start a business and then even to grow and to scale. And a lot of us are self-funded, which I started Precise and have carried Precise with my own funds. So that has definitely been a challenge, one, as a minority entrepreneur. But when it comes to the public relations industry, I've been doing this multicultural, now inclusive marketing thing for almost 30 years, back when it was called ethnic marketing. All, the names keep changing. Back before, it was in for a while, out for a while, in for a while, out for a while, and then in a while again after the George Floyd incident. But now it's on its way back out after DEI. So running a business that focuses on inclusive marketing and really trying to get companies to invest the dollars to support the things that they actually say is still as much of a challenge today as it was almost 30 years ago. And we are constantly working to help them understand the business case of it and how our country in particular is becoming more brown, that today's minority is going to be tomorrow's majority. And that is not 100 years from now. We're talking about 15 or 20. So trying to get companies to understand the benefit of investing in their consumer segments that really support and patronize their products and services is still a challenge. What keeps me going is I don't look at running Precise and the PR work that we do as just my career. It's also my passion, and I look at it as my ministry. I want companies to support the consumers that support them in terms of how they speak to them in marketing and communications, and also when they give back. So anytime I have a client, as large clients like I do, I always recommend that they partner with national, local organizations, that they give back to community organizations. I want them to invest their dollars in us. And so that's the challenge that we have to face on a daily basis. I know that my agency, compared to agencies that are led by, white women, white men, they don't, their budgets aren't the first that need to be cut when it's time to cut PR. When it's time to cut PR, it's like, oh, well, what's the Black stuff? Let's cut out the Black stuff or the Hispanic stuff. We continue to get the smallest portions of the budget, when in reality is most of these diverse consumer segments outspend other consumer segments. So why isn't your investment in advertising and marketing reflecting that? So professionally, that is the challenge that I continue to face, but I'm in this work because I love it. I have worked with clients who have demonstrated real commitment and have been open to my counsel. I do not take business from everybody that comes my way, which sounds crazy to a lot of people. But if you're a company that I see you have a very bad track record in the communities that I specialize in, I'm not going to partner with you unless you are willing to make the changes that we're going to recommend. We turned down some business last year from a big company. I was like, listen, if you don't do these 8 things, we're not the right agency for you. They don't want to do it. That's fine. Not all money is good money. So that's the biggest professional challenge. I will say personal barriers and obstacles, earlier in my career, definitely had to deal with a little bit of racism. It's the world that we live in. People tend to think, my job or the people that I work with, are racist or prejudiced. The truth is your workspace is a microcosm of the world that we live in. We're seeing it. Everything that's going on today's political environment is impacting how we work and how we live and how we play and our interactions, social, like every single thing. So there were definitely some microaggressions where it took real conversations and honesty for it to be addressed, but very frustrating. Just even things where some of me and my Black colleagues that liked each other and hung out with each other, You all are an island, is what we were told. Although we communicated, had friends with other people of other races, we were told that just because we liked being with each other. It was no different than the 4 or 5 white girls that went to lunch every day. So, that was frustrating. And I will say, running a Black-owned company with a majority of my team being African American or Latina, they come to me and say they feel so good to be able to be their authentic selves and to feel like they have a safe space every day. But it shouldn't just be me and other minority owner agency owners creating these spaces. Everybody needs to make people feel comfortable where they're working. So personally, I definitely went through, some of that. And then now the biggest challenge is running an agency that continues to grow, and managing my personal life. Every year I say I'm gonna be better about work-life balance, and ask my friends, they're like, you're not getting better. So that's my personal challenge. That's my story.
Thank you so much for touching such important points like values and ethics in PR, being authentic in PR. Yes, the other side of it, racism as well. We know that exists. All right, so we move on to the second question now. What significant aspect of life or an incident that was most challenging for you, and how did you handle it? Alexis, would you mind sharing it, please? Let's start with you.
Well, I'm going to continue on what I just said recently, just a second ago. During the George Floyd incident, of course, every company came out with statements that we stand with you, we see you, all of that. Some were sincere, most were performative. There was a client, I'm not going to name, that asked me to participate in a call to give feedback on the public statement they were going to present. When I read the statement, I will tell you, my head was going to explode. Not only as a PR professional, but as an African American woman. And I was on this call with about 20 people, and no one wanted to say anything negative about the statement. They were scared. They were scared. And then I realized my clients in-house, sometimes they're scared because they don't want to lose their jobs. So guess what? I don't really have anything to lose. I could lose you as a client, maybe, but we always have to remember, as PR professionals, we are counselors. They hire us for our knowledge, our expertise, and our insights. And if we don't give them that, we're not doing our jobs. So I spoke up and I gave them very, very direct feedback on what in the statement would work and what would not work, and how some lines in it were offensive. And I will tell you, my phone started going off with text messages. People that I didn't know were sending me LinkedIn messages like, thank you for speaking up. And I was thinking, wow. Why was me? Because I was invited to the call at the last minute, but no one else was speaking up. And they're still, I didn't have any negative impact after it. They appreciated my counsel. And so I think it's important to be brave in what you're saying, especially when you're in the kind of spaces that I'm in. And I think it's important to be brave as women, because we still live in a male-dominated world, a male-dominated country, even though our industry is predominantly women. So.
Yeah, thank you again. Yes, your professionals are counselors. Thank you for sharing that. Rochelle, would you mind to sharing that significant incident of your life that was challenging?
Sure. I'm marveling at how masterful this conversation is unfolding, because I'd like to complement what Alexis said with an organizational dynamic issue, as a woman navigating an organizational dynamic. And one of the things that I always like to tell people who, ask me for my opinion, and I always qualify, like, do you want my opinion or you just want me to listen? The ones that want my opinion, what I always advise them to do is make sure you know the rules for engagement, the rules of your organization, the rules of your industry, the rules of your regulatory industry or agency. Make sure you know the rules. So I was involved or invited to turn around a membership program. And it was at a predominant, and I was the only one. That's a synonym or a euphemism for being the only Black person in the whole building, I'm trying to take out identifiers, so bear with me. So when you were raised as a child of immigration, it doesn't really bother you because you recognize that that's just the way that it is, but you also are sensitive to it. And so you can move through it many times effortlessly. And when I say effortlessly, I mean, you just know that I have to know the theme song to Friends as much as I need to know the theme song to Living Single. So I just accept that. I accept that some meetings I have to wear my hair straight, and I accept some meetings I can wear my hair curly. I accept that that is just how you play the game. At least in my generation, that's just what you accept, and you learn how to play the game. So when I walked into this opportunity, I'm, turning things upside down and with grace, turning things upside down, moving the needle on revenue, moving the needle on the membership numbers, everything. So my scores were changed in my performance evaluation. And I called it to question because I knew the rules. You don't just sign your performance evaluation, you called it into question. That meeting set off a series of actions that then the woman that created the form fought for me because the person over her changed the score and said she doesn't deserve that. Nobody deserves that in the first year. I'm bringing 30, 20, 25 years of experience. First year doesn't even equate into the conversation. She ended up having a battle with her supervisor. She resigned. They brought in a white man, not promote me or even give me an interview, brought in a white man because I know the rules. My daddy worked for EEOC, for Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity, for the federal government. I knew the rules. So I chose I'm jumping ahead. So when they brought the white man in, I had two choices. I had to either reset the clock or look elsewhere. And I did both. I looked elsewhere, but also reset the clock because I wanted to see how it was going to play out. Then they started dismantling the program. I was the first person to go. A very successful program, they started dismantling the program. So when they called me in the office and said, well, the entity is going through certain things. And, I said, no, I didn't. Let's start there. No, I didn't. So enlighten me. So, they had their little script and they said what they needed to say. And I just marveled at the theatrics of it all. They wanted me to sign paperwork. And I said, no, I'm not signing paperwork. And I litigated it. I litigated it for two reasons. One, they should have given me the interview. And two, I shouldn't have been the first person to go because I was the only one in the building. And when there was an opportunity for me to be relocated, they didn't relocate me. So I took 2 years to litigate that, including depositions that the depositions of the witnesses were an hour, 2 hours. I'm texting my attorney. It was during COVID. So I'm texting my attorney. He said, are you doing okay? I said, I'm doing fine. He says, is there anything that, want me to ask? I said, yes, make sure you ask them this, 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 and this. I had 2,000 pages of discovery that I had to read, and I read everything. And I said, ask them this, ask them this, ask them this. And he was firing off questions, and their response was, whoa. The prosecuting attorney, she leaned into the camera, and then she leaned back out, and she was like, I was going to curse. I'm sorry. I know in her face, she was like, oh, shoot, we can't put her on the stand. So this is all mediation. We can't put her on the stand, because I was knocking it out, because I knew the rules. I knew what I was hired for. I knew what I was supposed to do, and I knew what value I brought to the table. And for them to evaluate and summarily dismiss me because of my gender, my race, and my age, I knew that they had 3 strikes. So when they came to my deposition was 9 hours. 9 hours. But you know what? I was ready for them because I knew the rules and I knew what I brought to the table. When you get to a certain point in your career and in your age and stage of life, you better know what you bring to the table. Not that you're walking around knowing that you know it all, but you know what you bring to the table, and you know that you're coming to add value. And when that is undermined, then you better be willing to self-advocate. So I advocated for myself. And that deposition, I kind of enjoyed it. It was the lawyer in me that I thought I should have been, when I had a choice of being either a teacher or a lawyer. It was the lawyer in me that maybe I should have been that came out. And I just move through the questions. And it was satisfying on many levels, but mostly because I was confident that what happened was not fair. What happened was not legal. Where it's not fair, it can't be illegal. Your boss can be a jerk, but he can't do anything illegal. So when you know that, discrimination doesn't have to be a noose hanging in your locker room or in your office. Discrimination or complaints of discrimination can be small, little, consistent things every single day. Alexis referred to as microaggressions. It's just every single day that lead to incidental consequence. I think that's the legal term. Long story short, I prevailed because I knew what they were doing was wrong. And I understood that they had done it before. So when I prevailed, I was able to reinforce the sense that when you know who you are, when you know what you bring to the table and you know the rules, then you're able to navigate the barriers that are inevitably going to come against you. Because honestly, when you're, like Alexa said, you're looking at what's happening in the world today, it is a power grab. And we are the ones that are going to be the collateral damage for it. So know who you are, know what you bring to the table, and be willing to self-advocate. And that courage comes after learning your craft in your 20s, after understanding how to differentiate yourself in your 30s, recognizing your value in your 40s, and having the chutzpah. I have a potty mouth. I'm trying to control it, but the chutzpah in your 50s to be able to say, you're not going to do that. And you know what that does? It helps the girl behind you that's watching you. That whole Monica Lewinsky thing back in the day, I believe with all my heart, it shouldn't have happened to the degree that it happened if there was one woman that said, Monica, stop it, or Bill, stop it. And if you don't have that kind of courage, then you need to take a back seat. So that was a little colorful answer. I hope you can take something away.
Yes, so that I got goosebumps. My God. Thank you for sharing a great example of self-advocacy and courage. Women should stand for herself, knowing her values. So talking about women and values, I'm jumping to the next question. That's personally very close to me. We have heard a lot that even if a woman meets 8 out of 10 criteria points for a job or opportunity, she never feels really ready for that job. Meanwhile, a man feels ready for that same job, even if he meets 2 out of 10 criteria for that same job and opportunity. He's more likely to go out and apply and perform for that job, even well for that job. So have you ever experienced that kind of an experience? Or how did you overcome that doubt if you had that kind of a doubt in you? So Dr. Marlene, can I ask you?
I don't know if I've actually had that experience, but I've definitely had women bring that up when I completed the Women in Leadership project with Dr. Ming from University of Georgia. And so that did come up that a lot of times women are reluctant to try for positions because they don't feel like they can check all the boxes. And so that definitely is a concern. And I also noticed in some of the research that we've done that women are definitely more modest in their assessment of their competencies and their abilities. And so that probably too plays into that is that a lot of times men have more confidence in their abilities, even if they may not have, even if you were to look at those skills objectively and see that the two would be very similar, women tend to be very harsh in judging their abilities.
Thank you, Dr. Malin. Alexis, would you like to add something?
Absolutely. I have a couple of thoughts on that, and I've definitely have seen that and experienced that. I have been in the room in meetings with men who are going on and on and on and are saying absolutely nothing of value. It amazes me. And I think women, for the most part, do not function that way because we know that we're scrutinized at a greater level. However, I do think there's something in us as women that we've been cultivated by society, because let's think about how long women have been in professional roles. It really hasn't been that long, like maybe the 60s, maybe a little sprinkling here and there, but maybe like the 60s or 50s, sorry. So I think, one, as women, we are cultivated to be the nurturer. We are cultivated to the man leads, whether we think about it consciously or subconsciously. We are cultivated to be modest, to not come across confident, because if you come across confident, you can be seen as arrogant or as that lovely B word. America Ferrera's speech in Barbie, which was the best thing about the movie, if you ask me, like that should be a mantra for all women, because everything she said was absolutely true. So I do think as women that impacts us in the workforce. We walk in with all of these things that we have to consistently fight through. And I also think that we suffer from imposter syndrome because we're more self-critical. We want to make sure that when we take on a job or take on a project, that we're ready and we're going to blow it out the water. Men will take the job and figure it out. And I have learned as an entrepreneur of a small business that sometimes you need to jump into the project and figure it out. But I kind of had to learn that, and I had to talk myself into it. Because if you keep waiting to get ready and be ready, and if you like things perfect, like I do, Miss Type A personality over here, all you do is slow yourself down and you rob yourself of the responsibilities. I think it's super important, as Rochelle said, you do have to have confidence in your abilities. And that does come with honing and mastering your craft. You do have to know what you're talking about. You do have to be credible. But once you do know that, be confident in that, and you have to walk into that. There are some things, about men that I think we could learn that. They're not fearful of that. They're not worried about that. But we know if we carry that same kind of stance, the perception and the way that we're going to be received isn't always great. And guess what? Sometimes it's not just by men. Sometimes it's by women. I had a client in my early years who later said to my boss, "Alexis is really assertive." I was like, is that a bad thing? Because I was speaking up in the meetings, I was offering suggestions, and I think maybe she was thrown because I was young, but she said it as if it was negative, which I am very pro-woman. When I see that in a meeting in my head, I'm like, go, girl, like, yes. But she made that a negative thing. I had a supervisor who put in my performance review that I was intimidating. She was older than I am. and more experience. First of all, I was like, why would you put that in a review? Because that to me says more about you than me. So, I think again, it's all about how we present ourselves, but we cannot worry about the naysayers. We can't worry about the negative voices in our heads. We have to prop ourselves up and really walk in the power that we have.
Thank you
May
so
I,
much.
may I underscore
Yeah, sure.
the remarks and the research with a request for reflection? Um, when Alexis was talking, it triggered some thoughts around how our life gives us clues, and where we can practice. So if you've ever, thought to wear an outfit and you thought that it was just too bold, which is, too much, I'm gonna take it down a notch. Resist that urge. When you look at The Bachelor and you examine why you look at The Bachelor, because that those 20 women or whatever number of women are fighting for the affections of one man. Um, the subliminal message is that you've got to have the right hair and the right figure and the right clothes and the right way that you kiss him and the right way that you talk and the right way that so society is always giving us subtle clues every facet of your life, and how you embrace those, accept those, incorporate those is how you walk into your professional world. There is no separation. Who you are at home, by and large, is who you are at work. When you want to say no, do you say no and put a period? When they ask you to put to take the minutes at work, do you say no or do you say yes? When you want to say no, do you say yes? There's a book called The No Club that I would encourage you to read. It's from a group of Carnegie Mellon authors, Carnegie Mellon faculty who co-authored the book. And it talks about non-promotable work that we get caught up in because we end up dumbing ourselves down and thinking that being in the room is better than being at the table. So I would just ask you guys to reflect on the areas of your life that you can practice showing up with confidence and showing up in your full authentic voice, so that when you get into your job and in professional organizations and you're looking for leadership opportunities, then you would have already practiced the skills of speaking up for yourself and recognizing the voice in you that says, you remember when Julia Roberts did The Runaway Bride, and then she didn't know what kind of eggs that she liked. Take a couple weeks and figure out what eggs you like, and then make sure when you go to order, still in euphemism, when you go to order the eggs that you like. The world can't take us at 100%. That's why that whole Jezebel spirit, floats in our conversations. Why she's aggressive when it's really assertive, which is something that's positive. That's where all that stuff comes from, because the world can't take women at 100%. We have to dilute ourselves in order to get our point across, but you come to a point where you stop it. So I just wanted to offer that just to underscore what they said, which was right on the money.
Yeah, that's great points. Yeah. When Alexis mentioned that you're like assertive, and my thought was like, wasn't it a compliment? Right? All right. Yeah, it
I
is.
thought so too, but she did not mean it as one.
True. Uh, you also kind of covered the next question I wanted to ask, that what advice you give to the young girls entering the workforce and how to handle that limiting belief created by oneself. I think we covered that question. So I move to the next question. What did you learn in the PR classroom, like when you were a student? Like what lessons you learned and how you're able to implement to the professional life that you've been leading? Dr. Marlene, I would like to start from you.
Well, I actually didn't take any public relations courses until my graduate level, both pursuing my master's and my PhD. But one of the things that we talked about just in our pre-discussions about this is we didn't hear a lot about some of the women leaders in the field. Definitely the history portion of the textbooks were still focused a lot on the men. Very few women were mentioned, as well as diverse practitioners. And so I think that's something that we're all getting better at and trying to do more of in classes today. And so as an instructor, I've really tried to bring in more diverse perspectives, even with my law and ethics class, bringing in other philosophers like Carol Gilligan, who is a feminist philosopher and speaks about issues around ethics related to women's perspective. And so trying to make sure that I'm bringing in other perspectives, even in something like an ethics course, to make sure that they're getting exposed to other perspectives.
Thank you for sharing, Dr. Molly. Rachel, you want to add something?
I would agree with Dr. Marlene. My experience has been that, you know, they really don't talk about women. You know, I did my undergraduate work at a historically Black college, and, you know, wherever there is a first with the Black community, everyone just kind of gets lumped in together. And so they don't pull out, you know, necessarily the firsts for Black women. So I am actually a student of history as it relates to women in this profession now. So I can't even say that I've had the experience of knowing along the way who were those standout women.
Alexis? Well,
I definitely agree with what Rochelle and Dr. Marlene has said. I will tell you, back in the olden days when, you know, I was in college, I felt that the most useful part that I learned that I still apply to this day is being able to write and being able to write well. I'm seeing a lot of young people who want to come into this field and they are not good writers. And I know a lot of it has to deal with that little device that we carry in our hands every day. And the way that they communicate is very, very different. So I'm always going to say that we need to focus, you know, on writing, because I want to talk a little bit more, you know, tactically, because I think as seasoned professionals, you know, these are some of the things that we can do to help, if some of the areas that we can focus on to help some of these younger professionals advance along the way. But the other thing is, while I do feel like public relations education has definitely evolved in the last 30 years, and there's a greater focus on it, there's a greater understanding of what it is. I still think most of us do get the question, well, what do you do and what does it mean? And then, but I do think there's there's greater attention to it than it used to be, as well as like career opportunities. To me, there's broader and more diverse opportunities than there was, you know, when I graduated from school. But I think in terms of pursuing a public relations degree in even an undergrad, there also needs to be some incorporation of more business classes as well as psychology. Now, psychology was my major, and I wish I would have taken even more classes. But the business part is so important, because if you understand business and what impacts the bottom line, you're going to be able to have greater conversations with your leadership, whether it's, you know, nonprofit or a corporate or agency, because everything that you do ultimately impacts the money that you bring in to make more products, to offer more services, to impact more, you know, patients, homeless people, whatever. I think there needs to be a greater focus on that, understanding that. And then also, you know, you never know when you're going to end up running or owning a business. Some people walk into it knowing I want to be an entrepreneur. We're seeing much more of that with this younger generation, which I admire and respect. But I didn't know I was going to come out here and run a company. Like, I had no idea. So I am still learning and honing my CEO skills. So I wish that I would have had greater insight into, you know, understanding just business practices in the language. I took one class, business and like management, and that was it. I wish I would have taken more.
thanks for sharing, Alexis.
May I underscore one of the points that she's making? I feel this symbiosis between
I know we're like ping
one
pong, ping
side.
pong.
I just want to underscore the fact that a few years ago, maybe 2016-ish, National Black Public Relations Society commissioned research about the state of PR from the practitioner of color's perspective, one of the things that we discovered while we did in our methodology, we were gathering survey results, is a lot of them, from a demographic perspective, a lot of the men that are in PR, they come up through the sales and marketing side, and then they end up being your boss, because it's just as Alexa said, they understand the P&L, and how communications and public relations contributes to moving the brand forward and responding to lead generation, and understanding the sales funnel, where we come up through the practitioner side, where we are doing events and we're doing press releases and we're doing the tactical work. So the rise to the top is often slower and probably more the grade is a lot straighter. So yes, learn those skills and learn the language of those skills, because you want to be on this other trajectory where you're going up and you're being the boss.
Yeah, you said it so nicely. Yes, that's true. Yeah. Dr. Marlene, I have a question for you. In your book, PR Women with Influence, Breaking Through the Ethical and Leadership Challenges, were there any surprising facts you uncovered? Any story that you would like to share with us?
Well, I would say one of the surprising stories that was told by several of the participants without any prompting is the same account where they talked about how the women were in a meeting and they would share a recommendation, an idea, and it was go unrecognized. And then a few minutes later, a male will actually give the same recommendation, and it's the most brilliant idea ever. And it was interesting because several told the same story without any prompting. And so it just re-emphasizes that aspect of how you can be in the room, but you may not be heard or have that influence. And so I think that's just a really good story that was shared within the context of our Women in Leadership book. And then the other book that just came out, it was interesting because people shared about some of their failures and regrets, their faults, and that's not all often that people are willing to share those negative aspects about their experiences. And one of the things that came out that I really did want to make sure that we emphasize for any young women that might be listening in today is the aspect about that work-life fit balance, whatever term you want to use for it, because we had so many that talked about our profession rewards people who work very hard and extra hard. And there were a lot of people who even had some health issues that they faced because of the fact that they were not taking care of themselves. And I think that's something that we've come to appreciate more, is making sure that you're caring for yourself, whether it's physical health, mental health, emotional health, all of those things matter. And giving a higher priority to that is something that came out of our study as well.
Oh my God, you touched on such an important topic. Like maintaining personal health is very, very important as you going up in the ladder of professional leadership. Thank you so much. I think that leads to the last question. I also want to give enough time for everyone that if you could change one thing about your journey to make it easier for the next generation of women leaders, what would that be? Dr. Marlene, can we start with you?
I would say that I would like to do a little bit more when it comes to mentoring and being an advocate for young women, because other people have done that for me. And I've learned, again, through my research about the importance of that, especially making sure that we're reaching out to those who may not have the same opportunities and make sure that we're actually opening doors for them, similar to what my mentor did for me.
Yeah, thank you for touching on mentorship. Alexis, would you like?
Sure, I would change anything in my journey. One, I really try to live, and I know you're not saying regrets, but I try not to live with regrets. And I also believe that the journey that you're on is the journey that you're supposed to be on. But I will say, in my own way, I have tried to give back to the next generation of PR professionals, women, and especially those that are diverse, through my independent mentoring. Rochelle knows I used to be the president of the Black PR Society of Atlanta for 8 years and really tried to do a lot of things that, impacted young people, which I think it has. I just had someone come up to me recently, actually a new business opportunity. And as soon as I saw the email, I said, "Have we met?" She said, "Yeah, I heard you speak at a Beepers event when you were president. And I remember you said, it was years ago. So for me, no, I don't really have a real answer to that question, because I think I've tried to do that because I recognize how people have done that for me.
Rachel, back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would say it much different than I don't want your journey to be easy. I want you to have I'm trying to use a G word. I want you to have the balls to be able to deal with what is going to come in, how life comes at you. If I were to change easier, I would use safer. I would want your journey to be safer, for you to be able to explore every area of your person and your passions without restriction. And if that means being a mentor and cheering you on from the sidelines, I'll do that. If that means actually bringing you into my organization, which I have, I issue a transfer for her to come to my organization. I have done that. I want your journey to be safer, not easier, because it's the things that we go through that make us stronger. And that's what the world needs. We need the voice of the women who hold up half the sky to be able to say and speak up, understanding the soft skills that are necessary. You know, you're not coming in there with like a bull in a china shop. You're coming in and you're knowing your stuff. You're knowing yourself, and you're knowing power, and you know who's running the room, and you navigate easily through that. There's a book that my dad bought all of us called Knowing Your Value by Mika Brzezinski. If you don't read anything else other than Dr. Marlene's book, the other book you need to read is Knowing Your Value, so that you can advocate for yourself and you recognize when opportunities are disparate. So no, I wouldn't want it to be easier. I want it to be safer, and I'm trying to do my part to make sure that the women around me feel safer.
Yes, safety. That's so important. Thank you for touching on that. We are almost at time, so just quickly wanted to say um, that recording of this session is available within 24 hours on our website, instituteofpr.org. And anything last comment anyone wants, like anyone of that you want to make? That we touched on such a great topic.
It's been a
I
wonderful
want to say something. Oh, I'm sorry, Rochelle. I just want to say something really quick. I just want to leave a vision in your mind, because I think about this every day. Can you all imagine if women ruled the world? Seriously. If we had, because there's female presidents in a lot of other countries, but ours, again, I'm very pro-female, and I believe the future is female. But imagine if women could rule the world. So with that thought and recognizing the power of that, I think it's important for us as women to advocate for each other in every way that we possibly can, in the workforce, in the community, nationally, politically. We have to stand up for each other and look out for each other, because we can't do it in silos for us to continue to advance. So that's all I want to say.
That's so good. It made me think about I'm going to repeat it correctly, but the proverb that says, to recognize the civility of a nation is in how it treats its women.
Well, that's scary considering what's
That's
going
right.
on.
That's right. That's right.
Very good.
Thank you so much again. We had a wonderful conversation. We touched on such great topics and got such great points. We talk about resilience, courage, safety, mentorship. That's all is needed for women, for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you for joining, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Our next episode, thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Dr. Marlene Neal. Thank you, Rochelle Payne, for all being here with us today. Our next episode of DPRC is actually going to be on the road. We will be taking our talents to IPR Bridge. So we'll have a session. It will be recorded, and you will have the opportunity to register for playback. It'll be on April the 10th. And we'll be talking about DEI using the depth model to change the communication. So check your inboxes for that opportunity, and it'll be available for playback in May. Thank you all again for being here. Thank our speakers. We're giving them a big round of applause for touching on such great topics and sharing their journeys with us. And we will see you next time. Have a great rest of your week.
Same to you.